very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to present here today. It's certainly nice to be back and to see so many familiar faces again, Lib and Wayne and so on. I've been out of the crime space, in a sense, crime prevention space for a number of years. I was previously BAC CEO until 2012, and then I joined again this last year, and I'll give you the reason for joining just now. But just in the context of the introduction that we heard earlier on, let me just flip through the slides. The context really is to say we're all aware of the extreme crime challenges that we have in the country. And if you look globally at the measures, organized crime, corruption, murder rates, all of those are really deteriorating over the number of years. And I think last year we were hit with another problem, the FATF grey listing of the country. So over the period of time, especially over the last 10 years, things have deteriorated remarkably in the crime space. And you, as practitioners in the industry, you know that at the coalface. So we don't need any reminders on that. But the issue is, how are we going to turn this around and address it? Because we can't keep on declining year after year, and we have to address it in some way. So what I'm going to talk about is intervention with government that business is involved in over the last 9 months. Just to give you a sense of what that intervention is about, it's very important that you understand that, and that, I think, gives us an opportunity to re-look at the crime space and especially the organized crime challenges that we have in the country, and to reassess what we're doing, and to really reposition the benchmarks that we need to go through. So it's a very important initiative that we're undertaking, and I think it's an opportunity just to brief everybody. There is going to be an international or a national press briefing later on today, which is organized by government and business. So more details would be unfolding as the day unfolds as well. But just by way of introduction, if you look at what's been happening in crime prevention and response over the last 20 years, I would assume that many of the members here are from ex-police members or ex-prosecution members, which have now migrated back into the private sector. So what we have seen over the last 15 years in particular is that migration from police, the really good police members, migrating into the private sector. Thanks very much. And as a result of that, the declining capabilities within the police. And I think that gap between the private sector and government is widening as we speak. So the problem is, as private sector, we are dealing most effectively with the challenges of crime, but we have to rely on government, and especially the criminal justice system, to be effective. So you can do whatever you need to do from a prevention and a security point of view, but we need to uplift the government space and the criminal justice system in particular. And I think it's time now to actually address that. We don't have time to see this widening gap increase to the point that we're actually in a lost cause. And we've seen that in the transport and logistics sector, where the transport system has deteriorated over a period of time to the point now where we're in crisis mode. And the same happened with electricity and Eskom, where the Eskom power plants, maintenance and so on have deteriorated over time to the point where we're in crisis mode with load shedding. So those are really some stark examples of a system that is left to deteriorate, and everybody then tolerates it and develops alternative plans to the point where we actually can't do it anymore. and we have to draw the line. So that's really the context that we're dealing with. And so that's the first point. The second point is South Africa as a country. How do we deal with challenges and problems that we have as a nation? We all eventually get together and we resolve it. And that's a very important lesson. It's the South African way of doing things. We don't keep apart. We actually move together and we solve the problem together. And in that context, the President announced, I think it was probably about a year ago, that the partnership with business is going to be fostered in particular areas where business can be brought on board to help government to resolve those particular problems. So that slide illustrates the structured approach that we have with government. It's a president-led initiative, which is, and I can tell you the president leads us and he monitors the progress quite on an ongoing basis. We meet with the president every 6 weeks. We met with him last night and his cabinet, and we talk about the issues that we have to deal with. So it's a very structured and a committed approach that we have with government, between government and business. It's been a journey because the requirement for government is to take on board business expertise and advice and resources where necessary, and to be open to that engagement in a very constructive way. So that's been a process, and it hasn't been a smooth ride. But I can tell you, after 9 months of this endeavor, we're at a point now where our meetings are very focused on deliverables and outcomes that we need to jointly address as business and government. So it's a very positive approach that we've got to. So it's the structure, the engagement, which is rich across cabinet members, DGs in government, business leaders across the different sectors as well, and commitment from each of those as well. At the bottom, there are 3 priority areas for this engagement. On the left-hand side, it's the energy challenge that we have with Eskom, and that is headed up by a group of executives in business and naturally the energy sector leadership, from the ministers down to the DGs and so on. So Eskom is a key role player there. And then the middle one is transport and logistics, which affects you quite directly. Transport and logistics is not only the rail network, but it's also affecting the road network as well. So the issue there is, how can we move from the current state in transport and logistics to the better state that we need to move cargo efficiently and effectively and at the lowest price as well. And to disrupt this movement of cargo moving from rail into the roads and the destruction that in turn happens as well. So that logistics area is a very important one. And then the third stream is crime and corruption, which we all know is a prevalent issue all around. And in fact, crime and corruption affects energy and logistics, as it does other sectors as well. So in each of these, the energy and logistics sector, there's a work stream that deals with security issues, crime and corruption matters, which is looking at the corruption that occurs within those SOEs, the destruction of infrastructure that occurs both within the energy sector and also the logistics sector as well. So Wayne is going to talk later on about an example, I think, of the work that's been undertaken by business to support the rail network. So that's going to be very interesting. So the importance of this is highlighted by the fact that crime and corruption is we would know it's endemic across the government and also certain sectors of business. And it's a massive challenge of how do you turn this situation around, and naturally preventing corruption and such like in those industries and companies is very important, but equally the performance of the criminal justice system is very important as well. So I'm going to go through a little bit of detail on the crime and corruptions work stream. Wayne will cover some of the work that's been happening in the logistics side of things as well. The intention of this initiative is to improve the economic growth of the country at the end of the day. And that's what business is interested in, is how do we grow this economy and get us out of the hole that we're in at this point in time. And part of the objective is to increase jobs, opportunities for employment, especially for youth. And so there's a separate work stream that's been initiated in the last couple of months, which is looking at employment opportunities in the country and how does business and government work together to establish better opportunities for employment. So the purpose really is growth and improving the situation, but we have to deal with these particular challenges at the operational level that these industries face. The initiative is backed by a large spread of CEOs and companies across the economic sector. We have formally over 130 pledges from industry CEOs, and some of these are listed here in the different sectors. But we feed back to these companies on a regular basis, and it's a tough call because the expectation is that we've got to make progress as government and business, but thus far we've been able to demonstrate that in fact we're moving along the right pathway. So the expectations are high. There's no chance of failure here for either government or business, so we're going to have to get these things improved. Just in terms of what's been achieved in the last 8 or 9 months, it's actually 9 months since I put this slide together. In the energy side, there's been particular improvements made across these different areas, the grid capacity and so on. I'm not going to go into the detail on that, but we're still challenged with the load shedding, but there's a very stark and a very detailed plan to move out of that space by the end of next year. On the transport and logistics side, there's some good work in terms of policy improvements that are taking place and legislation that's been put in place as well. And also dealing with the ports backlog. We had feedback last night of the reduction in ships that are waiting for ports, for berths in the port. So there are movements there. In both of those cases, in those two sectors, the Eskom and the Transnet, the new leadership has been appointed within those structures, which is critically important. And that new leadership, we've been working with them over the last year, and we have full confidence from business that the leadership is in place, and we've got a better chance now of actually improving the situations in each area. So business is not involved in the detail and the appointment of leadership within government sector, but we work very closely with the decision makers, and we also are very comfortable with decision-making processes as they are at the moment. And our meetings with the President are very robust, and if we do have an issue, we raise those directly, and that's at the request of the President as well, that we have very robust discussions, and there's no sacred cows. So the message really is that in those two spaces, there's good progress and positive movement taking place. In the crime and logistics space, with the assistance of Wayne's initiative in particular, there's been a reduction in crime incidents in one of the what do you call it, Wayne? Rail corridors. So that in effect has unlocked the movement of trains in those particular rail corridors, and we're working very closely with the structures, which I'll give you a bit more detail just now, on improving or rolling out those interventions across the different corridors, and then also dealing with the road issues as well. Just thought I'd come back here to, actually that's going to be covered just now, I think. So there are positive movements taking place, but the pressure is on government and business to increase the pace of delivery and change, and to really get tangible outcomes on these particular initiatives. So what we have here is, so I just wanted to come back to this particular one here. The crime and corruption initiative supports the transport and logistics work stream, as I've indicated. I just wanted to mention here, particularly in the context of your backgrounds, there's a work stream, number 7 within the transport and logistics work stream, which deals specifically with logistics security issues. So, and that particular work stream is now being converted into a priority initiative, which has been approved by the NAT joints, and those members from the police would understand the NAT joints and the importance of that. That priority initiative has now been approved, and that the importance of that, it involves the whole of government in dealing with logistics challenges in the country. And that includes intelligence structures, the prosecution authority, police, and so on. So it's actually quite a well-networked and a very, very organized approach. And business, for the first time, is actually involved in that structure as well, which is a deviation from the past. So we, and Wayne is often part of those discussions, where business comes in, we meet every Thursday, in fact, and we discuss and we address the program and what needs to be done. We're at the point now where the logistics, the rail logistics is there's a plan, and those actions are taking place. But on the road side, there's a need for further engagement with the industry. So we're reaching out to the industry for inputs into what are the challenges, what are the corridors, the transport corridors for road, the products going by road, where are the problems, and so on. So if we need a consolidated view on that, so it's very important that we actually get that into that structure so that the government agencies can then refocus their effort. Part of our energy should be in educating government, and especially the police, on what are the industry challenges that exist and what government should be doing to resolve those. And our role also is to make sure that that is actually complied with and delivered. So we don't back down, we make sure that there is improvement at the end of the day. So the crime and corruption work stream, on the right-hand side, there's a structure which feeds back into the president. The work stream is part of a structure called the National Priority Crime Operational Committee, which is a legislated committee set up by under the Police Act, and it's headed by General Libya, head of the Hawks. So that's a very structured committee. It deals with organized crime, corruption, and financial crime. So those are the 3 priorities, but it doesn't exclude all the other priorities as well that we have to deal with. So there's that structure is headed up by the DG in the presidency, with a direct feedback into the president. So it's a very powerful structure where, as an industry, we have an opportunity to table issues, to resolve issues, and to get the direct structures going that we need to get going to resolve our issues on the ground. So that's a very important structure. Business Against Crime historically has represented business on many of these structures, and is the first point of call between business and government on some of these issues. But that does not mean that other organizations cannot go directly to government as well. So there's a parallel stream of organizations such as the Insurance Crime Bureau, for example, working directly with government, but on certain issues that are industry, broader industry issues, the BAC would be the partner, and we would partner with SARB, RCB, and other structures, the banking industry and so on, to forge that partnership. These are broadly the priorities that we have at the moment. The left-hand 4 elements is looking at the capacitation of the criminal justice system. And if you look broadly at what we're doing, there's 3 elements. It's strengthening law enforcement. Second one is building capacity in the criminal justice system. And thirdly, modernizing the criminal justice system. So those are the 3 core elements that we address. And obviously, this is a massive task. The Criminal Justice Review Program has been ongoing since 2008, for example. But what we're having to do is to focus on specifics. We don't have time to deal with the whole system. We have to deal with each specific area in terms of the priority and address that in helping government improve their situation. So we're dealing mainly with forensics capacity, especially this digital forensics. So, for example, the cybercrime issues, for example, downloading evidence from digital platforms, those are deficiencies that the government have. The police can't do it, and nor can the investigative structures. They don't do it effectively. There are pockets of excellence, but if you look generally at organized crime, serious organized crime, there's a big deficiency and the police are asking for help in the investigation units. Building training capacity in particular areas, but training with a difference. It's really building the capacity which is sustained in the criminal justice system and not just simply moving in and moving out with trainers. And then strengthening the criminal justice system, we're looking to make specific improvements that would improve the information sharing between business and government in intelligence operations, for example, and so on. And then the last stream on the left-hand side is assisting government in dealing with the grey listing. Grey listing is a massive challenge for the country, which is not felt by the general citizen, but it affects our investment opportunities for companies coming into South Africa. So we're looking to help the Hawks and the MPA in dealing with the grey listing issues. On the right-hand side is looking at law enforcement issues through aggregation of information, and we've already started that process with different sectors, but it's really reviewing the information that sits within business and how can we aggregate that at a different level, and then work with the police so that the police can deal with organized crime syndicates. So it's the aggregation, especially of syndicates that are operating across sectors, which is important for us. So we're wanting to develop a mechanism of doing that from banking, insurance, consumer goods, and so on across the industry so that we can aggregate that. And then we've been asked specifically by the President to deal with the 10111 Centre in Midrand. In fact, it's the 10111 the emergency response system in the country, and we're going to focus on Gauteng, the Midrand Centre, which deals with all of the emergency calls in Gauteng. So that's a project that started already. And then the critical infrastructure initiative that I've talked about already with logistics. And then lastly, the behavior change, dealing with how do we get the change in behavior from amongst citizens, business, and government to deal with corruption issues, don't do corruption, and so on. So that's quite a massive task, and the SIU are quite deeply involved in that. So we have a set of priorities and objectives that we're hoping to meet this year. So you can imagine it's quite a task that we're undertaking, and this task can only be achieved through cooperation with the business industry or the business sector, and we need strong championships from the business sector and involvement. Business Against Crime is the facilitator, and our approach is to open up our arms, work with everybody so that we can actually move this problem together. So it's not restricted to a few. So we're coordinating and working with a lot of industries, and we'd obviously like to strengthen our involvement with logistics and TAPA and any other structures as well. Very important that we do pull together and work together. Briefly, the last slide I had was really to say, through, for example, the logistics industry initiative, it's quite clear when you work at a strategic level and at an operational level. There's a lot of issues that need to be taken into consideration. And you know, we found, for example, that the private security, if you can increase security, that's basically man guarding and such like, you can reduce crime to a level, but to reduce it further and sustainably, you need to actually improve the criminal justice system at the end of the day. So that's really the fundamental problem that we sit with. As soon as you do that, you can take out those criminal elements, reduce the organized crime network that exists, and so the things will improve. So, you know, it's very critical that we work with government, we target and we focus on improving the criminal justice system, and we use this opportunity to actually achieve that. It's a unique opportunity in the country, and I don't think it's been done anywhere else in the world, but with the leadership and the support of the President in particular and the leaders in government, I think we've got a real chance and opportunity to do that. I'm not sure in terms of time. I think I'm okay. So I think that's really what I wanted to share, and really encourage you to look ahead. Let's work together and deal with these issues together. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Questions from the audience? Oh, we have. Dr. Wright, don't run away. We have questions. That's perfect.
Thank you so much for the information that you've given us. It's very interesting that Business Against Crime is actually personally meeting with the President. Is there a way that companies can get that information, that type of information, as to those meetings that's happening? Because obviously you have a meeting with the President, it's serious stuff that you're talking about. Is it possible?
Yeah, so let me just correct you. The meeting with the President is with those 3 work streams, and we have the leadership of each work stream, and it's structured very carefully. We have a CEO group, a leadership group that heads up each work stream, and then there's an executive that drives it within the framework of a company that drives it. For example, in the logistics space, there are 3 or 4 CEOs from companies. There's a lead executive, which is Ian Bird. He heads up the sort of day-to-day and the leadership on a day-to-day basis. And then there's an organization called NLCC, the National Logistics Crisis Committee. That is a sort of forum for intergovernment cooperation. So that's that one. The crime and corruption work stream, we have 2 lead CEOs, and that's Yanni Durant from Remgro and Neil Froneman from Sibanye Stillwater. So those are the 2 CEOs. I'm the lead executive in a sense, and we've got Business Against Crime as the organization. And then we've set up this joint initiative against crime and corruption. We call it a JIC. So it's very complicated, but in essence, we meet. Last night's call, for example, is 70 of us. We normally meet face to face, but last night it was a group virtual meeting for various reasons. So business would be represented by the executives, and there are probably 30 or 40 business CEOs in the meeting. And we have a very structured way of dealing with it. So I would, with General Libya, for example, present issues on crime and corruption, and then we'd engage on specific issues. So, and those discussions are not generally shared beyond, but we've agreed now that there's a need for increased communications, and that's why today at 1 o'clock there's a briefing session with media on the matters. So those briefing sessions will happen more frequently, and as we move down the road, I think the general business sector would be more informed of it. Yeah.
Hi, Graham. I think my question is maybe on accountability. How do you navigate with these multiple state organs on accountability? And I mean, it's amazing work on the Midrand 10111 Center, yeah. But there's also this performance element and accountability that needs to be taken by government.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate as Business Against Crime in that space?
Yeah, so thanks. So we are not there to do government's job. We're there to support and advise and to provide resources. So on the 10111 issue, for example, there's a steering committee, a police steering committee, and they have a very structured implementation plan that we would then engage with them on. And they would, in terms of their accountabilities, have those. But what the partnership does do, those, is it monitors performance. So where there's a deficiency in performance, that's what the discussion's about. How do we deal with something's not working according to plan? And that's why we call it a critical path. Together with government, we design a critical path which has got outcomes, timelines, responsibilities, and we agree on that up front, and we jointly manage that. And that's the discussion we have with the minister, with the president, after the different agencies. Where together with the agencies, in fact, we meet with the president and we say, look, we've got a problem with this issue. This is the problem. How do we resolve it? If it hasn't been resolved at in the sort of line functions. So it's a very cooperative but structured approach without taking away the responsibility of government. And I didn't mention that this initiative is only really planned for a year to year and a half. So this year is supposed to be the last one, but there might be things going on. But in the crime space, Business Against Crime has been going since '96. So Business Against Crime will continue to do what it does. So this is really focused on specifics that will make a short-term impact. And so that's why the engagement with the logistics industry, for example, is very important. So as an industry, what you should be doing is to say, these are the key problems that we have, and these are the key interventions that we think are necessary, either from business or government, and then we can engage and get those things done.
Just a question from my side. Sorry, Thorsten. As the industry, we've been plagued by truck hijackings for a very long time, as you know, and the statistic shows it, and also the categorization of trucks is also not helping, because I don't think that government is seeing the real statistics behind it, because small express vehicles is not even accounted for as a truck hijacking. Just in that, on the involvement side, we have police involved pulling off the vehicles on the highways. And on the reactive side, there is no policeman or justice system that can investigate these cases or trial these cases, because they don't understand cargo crimes. Even on the warehousing side, theft cases, we get nowhere. Is that something that government will consider in training the justice system, prosecutors and policemen on cargo crimes, and how to investigate it and how to actually get these cases through court?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That's a good example of where we need to relook at what's been happening over the many years. I mean, we've been involved in dealing with truck hijackings for ages, but and a lot of these sort of issues have not been resolved adequately over a period of time. And with the changes in transport, with the small operators now transporting product, that's a new dimension. So certainly, I think what I would request, though, is that the industry gets together and formulate, quantify the problem, the nature of the problem, and then also the issues that are being faced, the perception of where the deficiencies sit. And then we can engage together, refine that, and then we'll set up that engagement within the context of this. Because we are looking for short-term interventions that will make a big impact on business and also citizens in the country as well. So, I think that's an ideal example of that.
I think we have one last question there, so.
I just wanted to check with you, the partnership that you have with government that you've been speaking about, how that, the outcomes that you intend on achieving, how that matches up to sort of the policies of government, which is in general different to that of business. Where business strives to make it more investor friendly and provide conditions conducive conditions for growth and that type of thing. But from a government perspective, due to the fact that it's things are more aligned with the needs of the party as opposed to the country in many instances. So don't you think that you guys sort of working on different parts when it comes to certain things?
Yeah, I don't think so. If you look at government policy, I think their objective is and should be to economic growth and so on as well. But part of the work streams is to look at legislation, and if there are any inhibiting legislation that's in place or any legislation that's required to be put in place that needs to be addressed. For example, the one issue is the NPA amendment bill, which looks at the investigative directorate, putting in place, finalizing and legitimizing the investigative directorate, which is essentially a sort of scorpions type of operation in a sense. So that's currently going through Parliament, and we're hoping this week or next week it'll be approved. But I think this platform is really an opportunity. If business does see that there's a area that's inhibiting business and growth, then the opportunity is to raise it. Through this platform, and there are other platforms as well. So this is not the only platform. There are many other platforms of engagement.
Perfect. Thank you again. Thanks for your time. It's really very, very interesting to listen to it. I think there are two things also which are quite important. I love the statement on the importance of public-private partnership, and that's exactly what TAPA is driving also for nearly 25 years. So that's really quite important. And related to the question also from our leader, let's be very open and honest, okay? Cargo crime is not a sexy crime. Cargo crime is not a crime which is always in the media. Because at the end of the day, cargo crime is an invisible crime for the people, living in your area. So that's really quite important to understand that. That's the biggest fight we have, by the way. If you go to a politician, they have no clue what cargo crime really means. But they know when there was a bank robbery. And when there's a bank robbery today in Berlin, it's in the press tomorrow. But when there's a hijack in the same area and the value is even 10 times more, it's not in the press. That's really quite important. That's exactly why we are here, and why we are also speaking to politicians. So now we come to a most important thing. We have a coffee break in the exhibition area, networking. So please take your time. Please be back at 11:15.